Chapter 30. Apologizing is like spring cleaning. First of all, you don't want to do it, but there's something inside you or somebody outside you who's standing there with her hands on her hips saying, "It's time to make things right around here." And there's no getting out of it. Once you get started though, you find out that you can't just clean out one room and be done with it. You have to do the whole house or you're tracking dirt from one place to the other. Well, it starts to seem like too much and you want to quit more than Christmas. But there's that somebody or something telling you again, keep going, you're almost done. No quitting allowed. Then all of a sudden you're done. It was an awful, terrible time and you never want to have to do it again in your whole life. But it is kind of nice seeing everything clean and looking just right. And at that moment, you're almost glad you did it, sort of. So I had a good sleep on Saturday night. But when I woke up on Sunday morning, I knew I wasn't finished. I walked out to the middle of the orchard and took a deep breath. My legs were shaking because those trees and I hadn't chatted in quite a while. And I wasn't sure how angry and maybe vicious they were going to be. There was a whole lot of them, and some of them could be quite rude, as you know. "I'm sorry I couldn't protect your friends. I'm sorry I couldn't save Winston and Philomena and the rest of them," I started out. "Daddy says we can plant more trees in the south field, and I know that doesn't make anything okay, but we're trying." I knew that part wouldn't help, and it might even hurt me with them, but for some reason I wanted them to know that Mama and Daddy cared. "I miss them too," I said. Well, all of those hundreds of them, and not one, all of those trees, hundreds of them, and not one of them said a word. I was beginning to think that my apologies made people's voices freeze up, and I would have to try that out on Emma Aronson next time she started going on about how she's so good the angels had reserved a special spot for her sitting right alongside them in heaven. But if you've ever talked to a bunch of people and that bunch of people was some of your best friends and they acted as if they didn't even hear you, like you weren't even there, you know how lonely that can feel? I guess I was just to my limit with feeling bad about myself and lonely and tired out in general. So I sat down on the ground and I cried. And since those trees weren't talking to me, but I figured they weren't going anywhere either, I told them everything. I just let it all pour out of me for the first time, I guess. I told them about Mama and the lump, Mrs. Myers and my name, and what I did to the DeLuna kids, what I said to Mama and Daddy, and how I'd missed those trees, but I figured they'd be angry with me. And I was afraid something exactly like this would happen, so I hadn't come to visit. When I was all done, it was all quiet. For a minute, I felt that awful fear you can get, when you think about maybe never ever having somebody you love's company again. But then Viola, who is the kindest of the bunch, whispered, "We missed you too, Ida B." Maurice, who's about the fourth nicest, said, "Welcome back, Ida B." And right then my heart almost overfilled with happiness. Then that stinker Polly T said, "I'm still mad, and don't think I'm forgetting anything, Ida B. And I'm not too sure about forgiving either." "Oh, Polly T," said Viola. But I was feeling so much better I could deal with Polly T myself. "Are you going to hold a grudge?" I asked. "I don't know," he said, back, being the punk that he is. "That's okay, Polly T," I told him. "But if you want to talk, I'm ready to listen." Then I chatted with the nice ones for a bit. And it wasn't like old times, but sometimes when you haven't talked with a friend for a while, even if it's strange and stiff and you don't quite know what to say, it can still feel better than ever. Before long, it was time to go. Since I had a few more steps to make on Ida B's Avenue of Atonement, I got all the way to the edge of the orchard before I realized I had something else I needed to tell those trees. I turned around so I was facing all of them. "I won't ever let it happen again," I told them. "I won't ever let it happen again, I promise." And I headed over to the brook. The brook started right in with so many questions I couldn't keep up. "Where have you been, Ida B? What have you been up to? Why haven't you stopped by? What's been going on?" And then it started repeating itself, so I interrupted. "I'm sorry I haven't been by," I said. "I was busy and sad, and that's no excuse. But I missed you, and I'm back now, so don't worry." Then I had to get going because the brook can keep you busy for a whole day just listening, and I had one more place I needed to go. When I got up to the top of the mountain, I cleared my throat. "Hello," I said. I stood there in front of the old tree, back straight, hands clasped in front of me. "You're looking well. How have you been?" I asked, just to get things going in a cordial kind of way, but the old tree doesn't bother much with small talk, so I moved on with my business. "I'm sorry I was rude. I'm sorry I was disrespectful. You were right, sort of, because it all did work out okay, but not perfect. I got mad at you, and I apologize for that," I said. "But those words were not doing the job. I was saying the right things, but not the really true things. Because I'd done something to the old tree that was just wrong, and I didn't want to admit I would even think about doing. Sorry. When I kicked that tree, I wasn't just trying to scare it. I was trying to hurt it. And I had a hard time imagining forgiving somebody who had done the same thing. I stepped closer, talked quieter. This is hard, I whispered. My heart was banging in my chest so I could hear it in my ears and feel it in my fingers. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, and filled myself up with the breeze from the valley. Then I let it out slow so it could get back to its travels with a little bit of me added to it. I am sorry I kicked you. I am sorry I was mean. I am just so sorry, I said right into the old tree's trunk. And then I didn't know what else to say, so I just stood there for a long time, not listening for the tree to tell me something, but just to be there with it because it felt right. The wind was blowing a bit on top of the mountain, but everything else was quiet. And after a while, all of me got quiet and calm too. I felt alone again, but not in a bad way. I felt like I could grow roots and stand right there on the mountaintop for all of the time and never be lonely again, even if the old tree went away. Then I heard a hum. It was coming from the tree, just like when you hum and you can feel a quiver in your lips. Well, the hum from the tree made my whole body quiver that little bit. And the old tree told me something that my heart understood, but it wasn't in words. It was a knowing. But if I had to give it words, if I had to tell you what that tree had said to me, it would just be this. Always. That humming and quivering broke away that last little pieces of my rock-hard heart that I didn't even know were still there. And tears came out of my eyes, but I wasn't crying. I put the fingertips of my left hand on that old tree's trunk and felt the smooth, warm whiteness. Me too, I said. Oh, that was sweet.